I was an athlete my whole life. That became part of my identity as I got older. So I found at an early age that I lacked identity. I lacked a sense of belonging, always trying to change myself to fit in, and just felt in general a bit of emptiness inside. Being an athlete, smoking weed, drinking alcohol on the weekends became a kind of just a common occurrence. It was something that was expected just of that circle. It was something that everybody did in our eyes. So I went from doing it part-time to really spending most of my time either getting high or trying to get drunk with my friends. Throughout college, that freshman year, it was no longer just weed. It was no longer just alcohol, but it was a concoction of anything I could get. It was cocaine, acid, mushrooms, ecstasy. The list goes on and on. Percocets. It was my first experience with pain pills, and my life started to struggle greatly. While it wasn't as evident from the outside, inside, that longing and that pain that I was feeling just continued to grow. The pinnacle of my soccer career, I made it to the NCAA tournament. Our team won their very first game in our school's history in the NCAA tournament. And the very next game, I got pulled for a random test, which I knew I was going to fail. Everything that I've worked for my whole life and everything that my identity really revolved around ended that day on a soccer field in New Jersey. My career was over. They were taking my last year of eligibility, and essentially that was it for me. In the midst of having just a beautiful family and being blessed with these incredible things as far as relationships in my life, still suffered from that longing, that loneliness, that emptiness within myself. No longer were drugs my escape, but they were my identity. And eventually I found myself experimenting with Percocets again. A person I'd worked with had them readily available. I was buying them no longer once every few weeks, but I was buying them just about every day. And this just seemed like the best escape I'd ever found. It was far better than alcohol. And eventually that usage progressed to harder and harder versions of it. It became an option to try heroin. I'd crossed that threshold where I would never do a drug like that, and I was off to the races. This is where my life really started to spiral out of control. I decided that I'd rather get high every day, just shirk on my responsibilities to my family, essentially turn my back on everything that I needed to be doing in life just to serve that selfish drive within myself to get high. My life had come unhinged so quickly that it was terrifying. When I was in my mess, at the very lowest point, physically I was a mess. I was just unhealthy. Emotionally, I was drained. I was hopeless. I lacked purpose. Spiritually, I was dead. And I prayed to God. If you're there, I need your help. I believe in you. Obviously, I don't have a relationship with you. I don't think I ever did because, I've never made you the Lord of my life. But, I will do what you tell me to do. And I said, God, just please give me the direction on how to start fixing whatever it is that, everything that I've broken, that I continue to break through my poor choices and just immature decisions. After about a month, my wife, I found out, in retrospect, that she'd reached out to my family because I was falling apart. There's really no other way to put it. One day, I was surprised with an intervention. My family just shared, obviously, the fact that there was really no hiding just the mess that I was in and the mess that I was causing and creating for my own family. My world was crumbling and everybody could see it. I sat there on a couch that day and they offered a Dalton Teen Challenge to me. And I just remember pulling my hat over my face because they said, you're going to go right now if you go. And I just closed my eyes and I was like, what? I can't go to Teen Challenge, a Dalton Teen Challenge. I can't leave my family, despite the fact that I hadn't really been there for them emotionally anyways. Physically, yes, but emotionally, no. And I decided that day because I knew it was bad. It was as bad as it had ever been, and it was only getting worse, that I needed help. I came to the Adult and Teen Challenge 30-day program, I really felt at peace that I was making the right step in my life. I started to, review, what my faith in God was, just considering that there was so much more for me than the life that I'd chosen for myself and that I'd just been sucked into. God lifted me up. When I was so hurt and broken, I started to feel a peace. I'm beginning a long-term 11-month program, and I was so at peace with the time that I was going to be spending there. Something had changed inside of me instantaneously. Within just a few days, I started to long for more. I wanted to know, who was this God? I've heard about him my whole life. I've been active in church and youth group, but I've never had a relationship before. I found myself just spending more and more time in the Word, really desiring to be changed. As they say, to have the words of Scripture written on your heart. I wanted something different, and the realness of God was no longer something that I questioned, because I'd felt it. It's that feeling of falling and being caught. You can no longer deny the presence of something much greater than myself, and for whatever reason, He loved me enough to pull me out of my mess. And then even after I messed up and screwed up and ruined everything even worse than it had ever been before, that he lifted me up. I've been humbled in a way that I needed so much. I have an opportunity now to share the hope that I have. I testify to what Jesus Christ has done in my life, and just the hope that there is there, because I remember the hopelessness, just the depravity that exists when you rely on yourself. I'm grateful that my flaws were so evident, because it made me realize the need for Christ in my life. I'm prepared to not just leave Teen Challenge or remain sober, but to be continue on a path to be a vessel to be used by God. I've always heard that our God's a God of restoration. He's a God of completion. From the realm of completion, I understood that when I started this process, that this was where I was supposed to be. I'd had that moment where I felt a very clear tugging at my heart. So I knew that I was where God wanted me. But the change that happened within me, there was a restoration process, a restoration of a broken man, of a broken soul. I went from being probably the most prideful, arrogant, yet self-loathing individual you may ever meet, to being humbled in a way that I didn't think possible, in a way probably that only a program like this could do. I've learned, when you learn about who our Creator is and trusting in the promises of His Word, what does it mean to love? How can I be a father and a husband when I've never actually exhibited the love that I should? And that's really for anybody in my life. I was never a good friend. I was never a very good child. I was never a good companion in any regard, because it was usually about me. It's the prayers of those and the support of those who provide the opportunity for Adult and Teen Challenge to reach people like me. The history of this program and all the support it's received over all of those years put this place in a position to save me and it really helped me, I guess, for lack of a better term, when I needed it. It provided that refuge out of the storm to just begin taking a step in the right direction. Being grateful to God for the opportunity to just be pulled from my mess, to be created new, to have a hope for not just a brighter future, but for an eternity with Him. But the work that people, way before me have put in has created an environment that allowed me to be changed, that allowed me to know Christ. There's so many people that are involved on a daily basis in supporting, this program, that have no idea that they've reached people like me, but God did. He knew that their work would result in a great change. My name is Scott Patrick, and this is my story of transformation.